Good morning, fifth grade. This is Miss J, and happy Friday. Today is Friday, May 22nd. Before we get into reading for today, make sure that you have your reading YouTube video open, of course, your Google form for your Stop and Johnson exit ticket, and you have your link with our book, Bud Not Buddy, open to chapter 12. Before we continue, did you finish reading chapter 11, pages 75 to 79? If yes, do the recap question in the Google form, then continue with our new lesson. If not, pause the video, read chapter 11, pages 75 to 79, then do the question in Google Forms, then come back to complete this lesson. Today we're going to be reading chapter 12 of Bud Not Buddy. We're going to be tracking the main character, Bud. We want to continue to learn from Bud as he interacts with other characters, and mainly in this chapter, his interactions with the setting too. Bud will be learning a lot about the setting and himself as he progresses closer to the solution to the main conflict of the story. Let's get into the beginning of chapter 12 until page 81 together. Follow along as I read out loud. Then you're going to pause the video and answer your first Stop and Jot question in your Google form. Chapter 12. After breakfast, me and Mr. Lewis said goodbye to the Sleets and got back into the car. I leaned over the front seat to put my suitcase in the back. Mr. Lewis, someone stole all the blood last night. He said, I'll say one thing for you, Bud. When you go to sleep, you go way to sleep. You don't remember anything about last night after we got to Flint? I said, I don't think so, sir. After you so rudely fell asleep on me, we dropped the blood off at Hurley Hospital. Then I gassed up. Then I got in touch with your daddy to let him know you were all right. Uh-oh. What did he say, sir? I didn't call him. I sent a telegram to the log cabin. He still owns that club, doesn't he? Yes, sir. Good. Lefty Lewis leaned over and reached in the glove box of the car. He pulled out a flimsy piece of yellow paper and handed it to me. Across the top of the paper it said in big letters, Western Union. Underneath that it said, Heck, stop. Bud OK in Flint, stop at 4309 North Street. Stop return 8 p.m. Wednesday stop. Lefty stop. Man, I'll bet Herman E. Calloway was just as confused by this message as I was. I said, what does this mean, sir? Lefty Lewis said, when you send a telegram, the more letters you use, the more money you have to pay. So you try to keep your messages as short as you can. Here, let me see it. I handed him the paper. He said, okay, heck, that stands for your dad, Herman E. Calloway. Bud OK in Flint, that lets him know how far you got and that you're safe. And you did get pretty far. Bud, maybe he won't be too hard on you when he sees how resourceful you were at running away. I know I'd have been darn proud of one of my kids if they'd have gotten that far, but I used to offer them money to run, and they'd never take it. At 4309 North Street, that's my daughter's address. In return, 8 p.m. Wednesday lets him know I'm bringing you home by 8 tonight. I said, what are all of those stops, sir? He said, that's the telegram office's way of saying period. It just means that the sentence is over. Lefty Lewis spent most of the day doing errands all around Flint. He made me promise to wait in the car for him. I was good and happy when he said, that's it, Bud. Time to head home. Pause the video here Head over to your Stop and Jot and answer question number 1. What was the purpose of the telegram? Once you complete your first Stop and Jot, come back and resume the video. So you should have answered your first Stop and Jot. What was the purpose of the telegram? Well, the purpose of the telegram was to let Herman E. Calloway, Bud's potential father, know that Bud was okay and heading back to Grand Rapids. Lefty sent this because Bud lied and said he's from Grand Rapids and needs to get back to his father. You will now read from the remainder of page 81 until the top of page 87, where the first paragraph ends with "I was out cold in no time." You will then get into your second Stop and Jot, showing your understanding of what is going on within the setting. During that particular time period, there was a lot of rebellion, and it's our job to identify why this is happening and why the police stopped Bud and Lefty while on their way to Grand Rapids. So again, you're going to read pages 81 to 87 independently. Pause the video. Once you've completed the reading and answered your second Stop and Jot, resume the video. Welcome back. So you should have read up until page 87, "I was out cold in no time," and you should have answered your second Stop and Jot. What is the new understanding about the setting and time period that Bud learns from his experience in this chapter? Bud learns that police are stopping cars that they can't identify because of the labor organizers that are traveling to Flint from Detroit. Labor organizers are trying to make unions within the automobile factories, and the unions are put in place to give the workers a better way of living with pay and sick leave. As we continue on with the chapter, we're going to read from the top of page 87 until the bottom of 88 together. While we're reading, I want you to think, why is Bud being hesitant about having Lefty walk in with him to talk to Herman E. Calloway? When I woke up, I looked out the window and stretched. Lefty Lewis said, "I was about to take you to Butterworth Hospital. I thought you'd left the earth for good." He pointed out of the window and said, "Looking familiar?" "Uh-oh. Yes, sir." I pointed at a gasoline filling station and said, "Yep, there's the gasoline filling station." He said, "I guess your daddy would have to burn premium in that big Packard, wouldn't he? I don't think those big engines can run on ethyl gasoline." I said, "No, sir, that's right." He told me, "Well, you and your daddy sure have one beautiful machine." I was getting real nervous, but I said, "Thank you, sir." We turned another corner and my heart started jumping around in my stomach. Halfway down the street was a building that looked like it was made out of giant chopped down trees. The log cabin. Uh-oh. Right outside the place was a sign that said, "Appearing Friday through Sunday in July, Herman E. Calloway and the Nubian Knights of the New Deal." My father had joined a new band. Lefty Lewis pulled up next to a car that was as long as a big boat. He said, "Ah, there's the Packard. He's here." I had to think real fast. I couldn't let Mr. Lewis and Herman E. Calloway talk to each other. If they did, I'd be on the first thing smoking back to Flint. And besides, I felt kind of bad about lying to Mr. Lewis. I wish I didn't have to. Lefty Lewis cut the car off and pulled the key out of the dashboard. I said, Mr. Lewis, this is going to be very embarrassing for me. What is, Bud? Can I go talk to my father by myself, sir? I swear I'll turn myself into him. Lefty Lewis looked at me kind of hard. Well, Bud, I don't mean to sully your reputation, but you just ran away from that man all the way across the state. I think I'd better hand deliver you. But Mr. Lewis, sir, I need to explain it to him by myself. I promise I'll go in and not run away again. Lefty Lewis looked out of the windshield like he was thinking. He reached back across the seat and put his hand on the twine, keeping my suitcase together. He said, I'll tell you what, Bud. You don't go anywhere without this, do you? I said, no, sir. Okay, here's the deal. I'll give you, he looked at his wristwatch, 5 minutes to talk to your dad alone. If you're not back by then, I'll bring your bag in for you. It wasn't great, but it would have to do. Besides, it gave me some more time to think. Please promise that you won't look inside of it, sir. He raised his hand. You've got my word. I got out of the car and walked to the front of the log cabin. The doors looked like they were made out of chopped down trees, just like the rest of the building. I looked back at Lefty Lewis, and he was still watching, so I opened one of the doors. I knew it was one of those doors that Mama had been talking about. I walked in to see what was going to happen. Shucks, there was another set of regular doors inside. The front door closed behind me, and I was in the dark. I tried the other door, and it came open, but I didn't push it all the way in. Why is Bud being hesitant about having Lefty walk in with him to talk to Herman E. Calloway? Well, Bud is trying to hide the fact that he lied to Lefty about where he was really going and what happened as to why he was on the lam. He doesn't want Lefty and Herman to talk because he feels as though they'll put him right back in Flint. You will now finish reading the chapter independently. Then you'll get into your third stop and jot of explaining how Bud is feeling upon meeting his father, and also the thoughts and realizations Bud has as he overhears his father speak to the band in this new setting. This is connecting our stop and jot of learning more about Bud through interactions he has within a new setting. So you're going to read pages 89 to 92 and then answer the question, explain the realizations Bud has of Herman E. Calloway after walking into the Packard and how he feels in the moment of seeing him in person. Once you've done that, come back and resume the video. So you should have completed chapter 12 and completed your third stop and jot in your Google form. So for stop and jot number 3, Bud begins to think and realize that his father and himself think alike and potentially act alike based off of the connection or based off of the conversation he is overhearing between Herman and the band. As he gets older, he keeps thinking of how old Herman looks. This threw him off guard because he wasn't expecting him to be wrinkly, but thought it made sense because he pictures this man as his father. So that's all we have for reading for today. The secret code for today's exit ticket is green. GREEN. Again, today's secret code is green. GREEN. So go ahead and head over to your stop and jot and complete your exit tickets.